How's it going, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us. And we have to reschedule just a little bit, so hopefully everything is okay, John.
Yeah, hey, glad to be here. This is me just finding out this is a live stream and not us recording it, and I really
Oh,
messed things up for you. I'm
no,
sorry.
it's okay.
I
Sorry,
don't
it's
know how I
okay.
didn't know that. Hey,
Uh,
everybody.
yeah, I think it's because. But big thank you to Jordan for setting this up.
Yeah, Jordan set it up. Yeah.
So what we're going to be talking about is a really amazing project that you guys have been working on for a while, and it just went live, and I left the link in the description of the video if you want to go and check it out. But before we talk about said project, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, John? How long have you been in the industry? What have you done? Where you come from?
Ooh, well, okay, yeah. So I started out a very long time ago now doing like web comics, stuff like that, kind of the early days of web comics.
Mhm.
Then I was an editor at Marvel Comics for a little over 5 years, I think. Went freelance and did some writing and design work. Then worked at IDW as an editor for, well, yeah, also about 5 years, a little bit less than 5 years, I think. There, left again. I was just freelance writing. Wrote a lot of Transformers, Back to the Future comics with Bob Gale, a little bit of Spider-Man, a little Doctor Strange, a little stuff here and there, some Star Wars, and then wound up coming back to IDW as editor in chief. And after a brisk 400 years that passed in the course of 3 or 4 years, I was back out on the streets. No, I was back freelance, but then I joined up with John Nee about a year ago at this company that we're at now, which is now Pan Universal Galactic Worldwide. And we've been kind of working behind the scenes on some stuff for, well, over a year. I mean, longer than I've been there. And this is kind of one of our big debuts. We've crowdfunded some games and stuff as well. But yeah.
So, I didn't say this behind the scenes, but I wanted to tell you now live. I love that era of Transformers. My daughter and I love the IDW era of
Oh,
Transformers, and it will
thank you.
forever live on in our hearts, no matter who's doing them. And I don't even know if Skybound has any. I mean, maybe they can reprint them. I don't know, but we love that era of Robots in the Skies and More Than Meets the Eye, and it just meant a lot to us. And dude, that thing that yeah, I could geek out now. What was it? The Transformers G.I. Joe.
Tom Scioli.
Yeah, that thing was so cool, man. So cool. Loved it. And
Yeah.
I wish there had been more things like that going on. But big fan of that era, so I was happy to see you go over to IDW and do that. Do your thing. So I was happy to see your name there for a while. So when I had the chance to interview you, I did not tell Jordan anything about my love of Transformers. So I'm like, I'm going to keep it to just Conan. We're going to talk about Conan. But I'm like, nah, I got to let him know, man. I love that stuff, brother.
Hey, I'm up for anything. All right. No, that's great. I appreciate it. That's really cool. Yeah, no. And I know if I understand, they do have the rights to reprint all that stuff. So send letters to your, just go to Robert Kirkman's house. Just knock on his
Go to
door.
Robert Kirkman's house. Well,
no, don't do
he was
that.
a fellow Kentuckian for a while.
Yeah.
And now he's all Hollywood, California, man. That's where all the big guys go. Okay. So you are now doing this through Pug, but it's going through Zoop, right? Like Zoop is how it's going to be crowdfunded. So tell me about the project and how this even came about, because this is something that I'm always interested in when it comes to characters like Conan, right?
Yeah.
Because you have the heroic signatures that are the license holders of Conan, and now they're working with Titan. Right before Titan, they were working with Marvel Comics to print the original Marvel Year Omnis. So how does something like this come about?
Yeah, well, John, he knows everybody, I think, in the comics industry.
Mhm.
So he's always kind of reaching out and talking to people. Honestly, earlier today, I got an email from somebody that I haven't talked to in 10 years who lives in the UAE, who John connected with. And he's like, oh, hey, I think this guy probably wants to talk to you. And I'm like, oh my God, this is somebody that I haven't talked to in forever. Super excited to talk to him. So yeah, he knows everybody. But we've got a few licenses that we'll be announcing over the next few, let's say, months. Conan's the first kind of big one. So yeah, we'll be doing some. We'll. I don't know the exact details of how it all came about, but yeah, it was an agreement with Heroic Signatures to do some art books like this one. We have a few other projects that we're working on with them.
Oh,
Um,
that's
that'll.
exciting.
Yeah. No, it super is. I'm a big Conan fan. Uh, Jim Zub, who's writing the current Conan series, is one of my like oldest friends in comics, and I love that current Conan series. And I actually just
Great.
the other good email I got this morning was him sending me a preview of the next issue. So I'm always excited about that. But
Yeah.
that has nothing to do with this book. That was just like I'm already a big Conan fan. So yeah, the idea of putting together kind of an artist, like something to celebrate the art of these books, an artist edition type book. We, like a lot of people here at Pug W, are ex-IDW or affiliated somehow with that. We're all friends with Scott Dunbier, who invented the artist edition, who like pioneered that. So we like I'm gonna have we have lunch with him. We hang out with them and stuff. So like it's not like we're careful to not step on toes and anything like that, to make sure that we're not like blowing something up that he had going. But this is definitely this sort of book that we were excited about. And kind of Nate Murray, who's the publisher at Pug W, he used to do the limited edition stuff at IDW, the IDW Limited, when that was a thing. So the sort of high end kind of bells and whistles deluxe books and crowdfunding stuff are right in his wheelhouse. So all that kind of came together, and we kind of wanted to do something that was going to celebrate as much of the original run of Conan as we could. Like there might be more books in the future, you know what I mean? Like we're not we don't want to
There's
not celebrate
so
the other stuff.
much. Like, so how do you even pick? Okay, so there is a really good question, because I do want to go ahead and talk about, because there were
What
a
is
lot
it?
of people didn't even know about this book,
Yes.
right?
Maybe I
So
should start there.
so let's talk about this artist edition.
Okay.
For people that are not familiar with how big this is going to be, what exactly it is, we're gonna. Well, I'll have John tell you. I'll just be quiet.
Here,
I just want to talk about Transformers.
Like,
Oh,
I
look
mean,
at
I probably
that.
shouldn't be like advertising somebody else's artist edition, but this is the lovely Jim Lee one that IDW put out. This is how big it is. I've got a, I don't know, normal sized head, pretty sizable. You take it out, bring it on the plane with you, just kind of read it, just relax. No, I'm just kidding. But the idea is, it's the original art, scanned at super high resolution, very high quality, and then
Okay.
printed at the original size. Most of the art's black and white, but all printing is in full color, so you can see everything that's on there, every bit of whiteout anybody did, any leftover pencil marks, anything like that. And also, I mean, some of these pages have kind of been around. You can see the background one there with the Conan the Barbarian movie special.
Yeah.
You can see a signature from a certain former governor of California down there at the bottom, just because that's been, that's where that page made its way to. Somebody had it, and they had Arnold Schwarzenegger sign it. Not that he's going to be signing these, like that again. That is not an actual signature that would actually be in the book. You know what I mean? Like he's not signing the books. He signed a copy of he signed the original art at one point in history.
And where does the original art come from, John? Because that's a question
Yeah.
that I get often whenever I do overviews of artist editions.
That's the trick with these more than anything, is all the stuff is in the hands of collectors. And we're very fortunate to have a lot of collectors who are generous with their time and their art, and letting us scan the stuff, letting I mean, basically they're letting us borrow their their art for this book, or stuff that they have probably hanging up in their house, or wherever they wherever they store their pages, I guess. But yeah, no, there's no warehouse of original art for all this stuff. Everything's been sold since the 70s or 80s, and yeah, that's that's the world of and it's not one that I'm super familiar with. Like I've met some of the people that some of the usual suspects that kind of work on this, or have some of the usual suspects who collect a lot of this art. But yeah, there's a whole worlds of original art collectors who talk about this stuff and sell art, all that kind
Yeah.
of stuff.
And these are scanned and then reproduced to the size of comic book pages that artists would draw on.
Yeah, the size of the original art, not the size of the final comic book.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
So the next question is, how in the world do you even choose how much big John Buscema, how much Barry Windsor-Smith? Because there were a lot of great artists. I mean, there was like, Conan was one of the franchises that I got into. The movies, I got into the cartoons, the video games, but the comic books I didn't get into until it was Kurt Busiek doing that book over at Dark Horse.
Right.
And then when Marvel said, "Hey, we're going to release all the Omnis," I was in.
Yeah.
So I started reading them, and that was the first time I had read those classic stories and Savage Sword. And there were so many great artists that I looked up to that got a lot of their start doing covers or internal artwork, like Mark Silvestri. You had covers of Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane. Just that, are almost, well, I guess in the comics community, they are household names.
Yeah.
But how do you pick and choose? Like, you're limited, of course, to a page count, right? You're like, we cannot go over these many pages. How do you go, okay, that's enough, John Buscema?
Well, yeah, that's really true. I mean, we did go over the page count. We were like, oh, we can't not have all the stuff in there, so let's bump it up to 190.
Oh, that's so awesome.
Yeah, I think we've got over 160 different pages. There's at least one page where we had a photostat of like the cover mocked up and then also the cover separate. Like they didn't actually put the logos on the original art of the cover.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I mean, in full transparency, a lot of it is reliant on luck and on these pages being known and available. Somewhere out there, I'm sure there's a cache of wonderful pages that we just didn't have access to, and maybe we will in the future. But yeah, the big thing we wanted to do with this, and one of the big focuses in trying to pick what's in it and what's not. We're actually having that talk like literally right now about some pages that have shown up more recently that does it make sense to include these? Do we have to lose something if we do it? But one of the things we really want to do, like I said, is kind of have an overview of this of this era of Conan comics, because what was really interesting about it was, I mean, it's widely regarded that like Conan and Star Wars are the comics that helped save Marvel in the 70s. Like that having those licenses, it's almost hard to imagine now, but like having those licenses were one of the things that kind of helped keep the company afloat. The other thing that's really unique about the Conan stuff, I think, is if you like Conan, this stuff is obviously great and it's really, really amazing. But if you like comic book art, this is also really important in that context in a way that some licensed stuff maybe isn't. That Barry Windsor-Smith's art and Conan defined a lot of the way people look at the character. But also defined a lot of how people looked at comic book art in that time period. I mean, he was like, you can see him kind of growing from where he started, which was very Kirby-like, into this sort of romanticism of his later work. And you can sort of see that happening on the page. We've actually got a complete Barry Windsor-Smith story in here, and you can see that sort of transition start to happen as it goes on. John Buscema literally wrote the book on drawing Marvel comics, or I mean, he drew the book on how to draw comics the Marvel way. And a huge part of his career is spent drawing Conan. Like there's just
loved it, man.
Yeah. And Gil Kane, he's the other one of our kind of big three that we have, in terms of like, we have sections on Buscema, John Buscema, Barry Windsor-Smith and Gil Kane. Then we've got kind of another section of, and here's a lot of other people where we've got, I mean, Neil Adams, Bill Sienkiewicz, some of the artists you mentioned. I mean, Jim Lee, obviously.
Arthur Adams did some covers.
Art Adams.
All these people.
Exactly. There's a lot of people in there that I didn't even remember did Conan stuff, and you kind of forget that intersection of this stuff was still coming out when a lot of the pre-image stuff was kind of blowing up. And,
you're right. You forget how long it lasted because you would just stop seeing it often at the comic book stores, because everything was being drowned out by the image style of art, right? So Conan was kind of put on. Then they relaunched him again with that chromium cover.
That's right. I actually forgot about that.
No, I have not. And that's the one I'm like, oh, we got to get that stuff collected. Um, so this project has been going on for a while, and it is now being crowdfunded through Zoop, and I've got the link in the description of the video, and there's different tiers.
Mhm.
So this book has 190 plus pages, you said, right?
Yeah.
And we're looking at the size of an artist edition, which you held up earlier, which is the Hush. I'm sorry, the Jim Lee book.
Yeah.
What is the retail price for something like this?
Oh,
Or what are the different tiers? I'm sorry.
oh yeah, yeah. The basic book itself is $150, which is like that's what we're running for on Zoop, which is more or less, actually probably even a little less than what these usually retail at retail at stores.
Mhm.
We have a $200 signed version that's signed by Roy Thomas, who wrote New Introduction. Roy Thomas, of course, wrote a.
Wait, he did another introduction?
Hang
I
on your
love
hat.
that
Roy
guy.
Thomas wrote an introduction. No, Roy Thomas is awesome.
I
And
love that guy.
yeah, no, he's a. Um, so this is a funny story I have with Roy Thomas. Is decades ago, before I got into comics, I was in line at San Diego Comic-Con, in line at Kinko's, back when it was Kinko's, before it was FedEx office.
Mhm.
And this guy's behind me, and he's just like super excited about some art that he had that he was going to go get scanned, or going to make a copy of or something. And he was just like, he goes, "Hey, look at this! Isn't this cool?" I'm like, "Yeah, oh man, that's really awesome!" Like, nice guy, he's kind of having a little talk. Then I look down at his name tag, Roy Thomas, and I was like blown away that, like, man, this guy has been through everything,
He's written.
and he still was that excited about like some art. That was I don't know. I just love that about him.
Well, when you mentioned Star Wars and Conan,
Yeah,
Larry brought up Roy Thomas made both Star Wars and Conan license happen. So in a way, Roy ended up saving the comics back then.
yeah. Oh, I
Marvel
think
Comics,
that's
because
yeah, unequivocally, right? I mean, like, yeah, no, I
he
think that's
just happened to
totally.
be. I know. Well, he was a huge fan of the Conan, right? Like Robert E. Howard stuff, and he was
Mhm.
like, "Oh, this would make a really good book." And oh my gosh,
Yeah,
and it was, and it's really interesting to see that too, because it's like eventually you run out of the source material.
yeah,
Then where do you go? Okay, well, Robert E. Howard also wrote these other stories. Let's just change them up a little bit from pirate to, this type of character.
yeah,
And I thought that was so cool. And then he was like, well, then there were other people outside of Robert E. Howard that wrote Conan. And
yeah.
I love that about those early issues of Conan the Barbarian, how it kind of morphed into what it was. And then, of course, we had other writers come in. So that's so cool that Roy Thomas is writing another introduction for Conan. Love it. Love it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and I mean, really, those are the prices for the book. We've got some prints as well. Yeah, they're running for $40. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, really, we're more than anything, the two things were that we're using Zoop as, and this is one of the things we want to do as a company, is we're using Zoop to try to reach out to the Conan fans. Like not every book that we do is going to go the same route. We but we want to be where the fans are, and in 2023, that's one of the big challenges of 2023, I think, because everything's so diffuse and people don't necessarily overlap. There's so many different ways people access comics, that
Mhm.
weren't there when I was a kid. That when I was a kid, if you liked comics, if you liked Captain America, what you had to do is you had to go to a comic book store and buy Captain America comics. Nowadays, there are people that love Captain America that have never set foot in a comic book store because they love Chris Evans, and
Oh,
that's
right. Mhm.
that's super valid. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the other thing is, if I wanted to get a comic book, I had to go in there. Now, I can walk into Barnes and Noble. I can go on my phone and go on
Mhm.
to Tapas or anything. I pick up manga wherever I pick that up. Which I guess would be Barnes and Noble. But and I still love going to the comic book store, of course. But like just that idea that isn't necessarily where everything comics has to focus through anymore. So yeah, we want to try to get out to where the fans are. But this is going to be the printing of this book. We're looking to still get this out into retail stores afterwards, but
That was one of the big questions
yeah,
that people keep asking. So this is the printing of the
yeah,
artist edition,
yeah,
and I know there is a retailer bundle too. I think that's how some retailers have gotten some of these artist editions, or I'm sorry, some of
okay,
these books through Zoop
yeah.
before. So,
yeah. We might be able to.
Okay, John, we made sure to edge out Artist Select books in the size with this one. Just measured by John Byrne, Fantastic Four Artist Select, and this is bigger.
Oh God, the Artist Select are the ones that are smaller, that are like 9 by 12, right? Yeah. We're definitely bigger than that. This is a full size Artist Edition one. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I think one of the other kind of cool things that we're doing with it is we're Ian Chalgren, who's our designer, who's amazing. He had kind of this vision of how to put it together, where within each one of those sections, we're running the pages chronologically, so you can see like how John Buscema evolves over the course of drawing Conan, right? So you
so you're not picking and choosing and putting them out of order. You're putting them in like
publishing
order.
You might have a page of Conan the Barbarian, and then you might have a page of King Conan, and then you might have a page of Savage Sword of Conan that originally ran in black and white. Like all of those might be in that order, which I think is really cool to see how that evolves. And then, it's a lot of Buscema stuff. Hi, Joe, by the way. Sorry, watching everybody's comments.
No, I got you. I was just putting some up. Whew. So, as a fan, what was your first experience with Conan? The books, the comics, the films?
Okay, probably the first movie, but the first thing I remember is going to Universal Studios, and I was a little kid living in Elmhurst, Illinois, but my grandma lived in California. We went out to go visit my grandma, went to Universal Studios, and at the time they had a Conan stunt show where somebody was playing Conan. You'd go and sit in this theater, and he's playing Conan, and a big snake would come up, and you'd have to fight, and there'd be light shows and everything. And I got a plastic sword there, which to this day is at my dad's house, still exists. It's in the guest bedroom at my dad's house in Fullerton, and I think that was the first thing that really imprinted me or imprinted Conan on me. And then I think I got into. I think I probably backed into getting into some of the Barry Windsor-Smith, Roy Thomas issues when Marvel was reprinting them, I think in the 90s. That was probably where I first started seeing some of the Conan comics. And then I'd read a little bit of the books when in the 70s, L. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter, I mean, for Conan fans, I think very controversially pulled together all of the Robert E. Howard stuff, put them into their version of chronological order, wrote some new stories, wrote stories based on outlines. A lot of those stories got turned into comics via Roy Thomas. But I read some of that, and then more recently, I mean, I've read all the Robert E. Howard stuff now, but yeah, I think that's my Conan story.
It's everybody finds the Sumerian in different ways. I just think it's really interesting how there are people that grew up in the 90s that knew him from the cartoons, and then of course 80s kids just love the movies, and then you find out there were books, and then oh my gosh, there were comics. Sam just said he pledged for the signed version. That's the Roy Thomas signature. I used to work at the Conan show when I first came to Cali.
Oh, you did? Oh, I'm sorry.
No.
Wow. I was actually looking. I was literally looking to see the page where he bought the art. I missed that. Oh, you used to work on that. Wow. Hey, maybe I saw you there.
John Buscema's anniversary is on January 10th. Wow, you know more about that. Oh yeah, the cartoon got my brothers into Conan. Like they had no idea about Arnold. They're a little younger than I am though. And that cartoon was awesome. Was Conan the Adventurer. And then there was a follow-up to that. It had like that same animation style like Gargoyles had.
Oh wow.
Okay. And it kind of had a kick-ass intro song too, like a very manly Conan song.
Oh.
Yeah, it was cool.
Yeah.
I don't really have time to watch movies lately because of my studies, but comics are chill. I can read an issue whenever I want. That is the beauty of comics.
Yeah.
And whenever you're dealing with a property like this, right? Mm-hmm. The art, this is something I've always been curious about because you have IDW that has put out artist editions, like you were showing earlier. And I know that the art belongs to the artist after a certain time, but then when you go back a little bit, you know, like during the age of like Jack Kirby and all those guys, the art I think belonged to the studio at the time. So how does that work when it this might be a legal question though.
Well, it,
Like how do you would have to get a hold of like okay, let's use Daredevil by Frank Miller,
okay.
right? You're like, okay, we want to do a Daredevil by Frank Miller artist edition.
Mhm.
The character belongs to Marvel Comics. The art has been auctioned off, and then now it's owned by every. So do you guys get a hold of Marvel Comics and say, hey, we want to do this Daredevil artist edition. We have to have the Marvel logo, and then you guys work out a deal. I assume is this how
Yeah.
it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So the reproduction rights to the art remain with the copyright or the copyright holder or the trademark
Okay.
holder, which might. I'm saying those as though they're the same thing. They're not. In this case, they are. It's conceivable to wind up in it's conceivable to wind up in situations where the copyright holder is different than the trademark holder, and that is a difficult situation to find yourself in.
Mhm.
But yeah. The publishers take a weird stance on some of those questions, not just for legal reasons, partially for legal reasons, but also for tax reasons. That um, assigning a value to original art creates an asset that is owned by someone that has to get taxed. So they're
Mhm.
very careful to word things in certain ways to try to not have that burden fall upon the artists. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay.
It's not like, okay, we just sent you back your original art, now you have to pay the government so much dollars out of something that's obviously not how anything's intended, right? um so we're also in a world now where first of all, much less of the original art ever makes its way to a publisher's hands. Like when I worked at Marvel, almost all the pages would still physically arrive on via FedEx at the Marvel offices and get scanned there and then get returned to the artist. Nowadays, that almost never happens. The artist will scan it. Um,
Keep the
9 times out
original.
of 10, when there's a penciler and an inker, that original art isn't even making its way to the inker. So you wind up with two originals. The penciler did an original, and then the
Mhm.
inker maybe printed it on blue line or something. But I mean, the younger generations of artists tend to work digitally a lot more, and there tends to not be a line between penciling and inking the way there used to be. Not 100% of the time, but like a lot of artists coming up just don't differentiate between those things, and even color a lot of times, right? Like you'll see somebody, Peach Momoko isn't sending stuff off to get inked by somebody, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, the physical pieces of the art are owned by whoever owns them. Or like whoever has them, whoever bought them off of an auction, something like that. But yeah, back in the, I mean, my understanding is in the old days, Marvel would, or whatever publisher would have, I don't know, like shelves filled with original art. I think at a certain point, nobody thought that stuff had value at all. Like it wasn't even.
Oh yeah. You
I mean,
always
there's
hear
certainly
stories of like
nefarious stuff.
Kirby and all his
Yeah,
art on the floor, just using it, using the back of it for something else. Like,
yeah. Or I remember. I think it might have been like a Mark Evan Year column or something I read where he was talking about how some editors would just send pages of original art to people that wrote letters, as a thank
yeah,
you, because what else are you going to do? Just throw it away? Like, this is disposable. Nobody cares. So
that
it's
is crazy
funny.
to think about. That's
Yeah. No, it's funny because like at a certain point, it definitely got into this should be going back to the artists. We all understand this has value, and publishers should be acting on that. But I think at a certain point before that, there was just nobody even understood that stuff had value. The same way like everybody, like the BBC erasing Doctor Who episodes or whatever,
oh
because there's
yeah,
no,
like
it was,
burning the tape so they have more room.
yeah, it was like, yeah, right, or like just taping over stuff because the cost of the videotape was worth more than having that. Exist anymore.
Yeah, that's always been crazy to me. I think that's guess that's why they instituted like the AFI too, right? The American Film Institute, to make
Oh,
sure a lot of these things
yeah.
don't go away. So I think folks like this are very important. Okay, we got some love. Psycho Cleveland, a man of good taste. Transformers versus G.I. Joe is one of the greatest comics of all time. Nice work, John.
Yeah, well, again, I got, as I say, whenever anybody talks about that, that is all Tom. I was just riding coattails and barely involved. Tom and I still talk. We're okay, but like that was all Tom. Tom is so good.
That stuff
Have you
was
didn't?
awesome.
If you liked that and you happen to miss the GoBots series
GoBots,
that he
yeah.
did, check that out too, because that stuff is really good as well.
I agree. And that one never came out. I don't think that one ever hit a hardcover.
I don't know.
But there were some trade paperbacks.
Yeah.
And dude, obviously, I love the Transformers.
Oh yeah, I didn't even see that.
All the band, like even like that was it. That's it. That's all we got. Like that's the end. Yeah, breaks my heart.
I know.
Breaks my heart.
To have the whole set, right? I know the date it would have come out.
I love Conan. He's my comic character I relate to the most. Well, him and Barber.
Nice.
Some of the newer artists would be better served if they did use an inker. Larry.
Not untrue, yeah.
BBC erased the coverage of the first moon landing.
Well, come on. People went back there. They got bored. They came back home. Nobody cares. They were right about that one. No, I'm just kidding, David. I'm just kidding, David. See.
So we did cover this question a little bit, but let's just answer it again. I'm not sure if this question was fully answered. Will this book be available in retail and comic stores? And I kind of have a follow-up question to that too.
Yeah, well, it's like you pointed out, there is a retailer level on here where retailers can buy multiple copies of the versions that are on Zoop. We do plan to have some of the print run of this, not with the covers on Zoop, going to being available at stores. But it's not going to be a huge print run, and this is probably and it will be part of this same print run that we're talking about on Zoop.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but the Jim Lee cover is the Zoop exclusive, right?
Yeah.
The John Buscema is that's the one that will end up going to retailers.
This is not me being cagey. Undecided at this point, to be honest.
Okay.
The Jim Lee one won't be, but that is fully the Zoop limited one. But this might be the only place to get the John Buscema one as well. And probably should have had that all locked down before I got on here and was answering questions live. But I'm not positive.
And before you, well, actually, let's go to this one. John Buscema gave Roy Thomas some original art. Roy Thomas said he regretted departing with them. Can we order this outside of the U.S.? That's another big question too. So there are a lot of European viewers that I have, or people of South America represent that are a big fan of Conan. So
yeah, I believe so. I think the shipping gets. I was just talking to somebody else about this and was going through and naming places where you could ship it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let me make sure. This is me doing it live. Where do I? Oh, hold on. Where do I live? I don't live in the United States. I live in, what's your favorite country?
You ship to my country. All international orders are sold with the terms of DAP, delivered at place. You're responsible for any duties and taxes required. Carriers may require you to pay taxes. So it looks like they do.
Yeah, it does. The shipping fees can get up significantly higher than the US. And that's all with our partners at Zoop, but I think I don't think when they're charging an outlandish shipping fee, it's in an effort to make money off of it. I think that's actually just what it costs to get stuff to certain places. In certain places, there's cheaper ways to get it to. I know, I think going to the UK is a little cheaper than going to other countries for whatever reason. But yes, the short answer, yes, it is.
So, John, you've said that most of this would be in black and white. Are you trying to tell me that maybe some of the Bill Sienkiewicz painted covers?
Yeah. We've got Sienkiewicz. There's actually a very beautiful Neil Adams painting in there as well.
Okay.
Really cool. So yeah, no, there's a handful of them that are color, but almost all of it's black and white. But yeah, there's some beautiful colors.
I love that. What was it? It was it? Yeah, it was Conan. It's where he's holding the gun from the What If issue. Yeah, that's an awesome cover, man.
Yeah. That is. Oh yeah, no, that is a classic one. Sienkiewicz is he was the reason I got into comics, and yeah, that's a good one.
That's right, because there were artist editions of his. Oh my gosh, that New Mutants
Yeah.
thing is outrageously out of print.
Yes.
So with this project, how in the world, and this is out of my personal curiosity, how do you guys even approach this? Like, how do you know who has the art? Like, I'm assuming auction sites are like, maybe they keep track of who they would have to, right? For legal reasons and
Yeah,
tax
that's true.
purposes.
Not everything goes through auction. Like I didn't assemble the art here. Like that is not my
Mhm.
area of expertise. But it's a lot of it. I think is like looking around forums. Like I was saying, there's a whole community of original art.
Okay.
Art people, and actually, I mean, since we put this up online, there's some people have kind of popped up and been like, "Oh, I've got pages too. Would you, maybe maybe do you want these in here?" Or
Volume
so,
2. Volume
right,
2.
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. No. We've definitely talked about like trying to do. Again, this is all just that Sienkiewicz page is in the book. Yeah. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Awesome.
Um, but yeah, we've been talking about, I mean, just idly talking about like, well, maybe we do one that's got some of the like Carrie Nord stuff from later on or whatever. I mean, none of this is planned. If you're Carrie Nord and hearing this, we're just talking. I'm just talking, but
Oh, some of the Dark Horse era stuff, huh?
I think that'd be fun too. I mean, there's some
Oh,
beautiful
yeah.
art throughout the whole run. I mean, the current, all the way up to the current days. It's there's a lot of
He
good Conan art.
There's definitely that style that he just, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, I remember going through all 10 Omnis and King Conan
Yeah.
and Savage Sword, and I was like, it always feels like the same style but it never gets old. So with Conan, then is it possible to also reprint pages with Red Sonja?
Uh, n- that's a separate license.
Okay.
Um, Uh, so not exactly, no.
Mhm.
There's a couple of things in here. I- People used to be way fast and looser with this kind of stuff. So that there are certain characters we're working out now. If we'll be able to include a page or two of them,
Okay.
um, you could probably guess from the run the
Yes.
probably two big characters that I mean. Um, the Red Sonja being one of them.
Mhm.
Um, so we're making sure everything's okay with that. But that is a uh, that's more complicated than it should be. Although I understand why it is. Just,
Dude, you worked at IDW. You know how those Transformer reprints work. You
oh,
can't.
well, yeah. We're talking about like the
The
trademark
classic
and copyright.
Marvel ones with Spider-Man, and then later on a character they created, and oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Hey,
Circuit
as
Breaker, who
fans,
appeared in Circuit Breaker, who appeared in
Circuit
Secret
Breaker.
Wars 2 in order to not be owned by Hasbro.
Well, you know what I'm saying? Like, as fans, like I mean, I know a lot of this stuff because I work with a lot of publishers, so I understand how a lot of it works. But back then, I'm like, what the hell? Why is Spider-Man all shadowed out of this issue? They can't even collect the issue. It's just like it's one thing to want something and then to actually deliver. It's a lot more loops that you have to jump through when you talk about licensed characters.
Yeah,
So that this is really cool. Like I've seen a lot of, and anybody that just wants to check out some of the original art that they're going to be using, I strongly suggest going over to the link that I left, and they have prints there, including I just saw the one that I was talking about, the Bill Sienkiewicz print.
yep. Oh
So
yeah, that's right. I forgot we had a print.
what's
Not
up,
only is it in the book, it's also not in the book too. It's both in the book and not in the book if you just want that one.
and I just saw the Neil Adams one that
Yeah,
you were talking about, which is freaking awesome.
yeah.
Um, so I have to ask then, who's your definitive Conan artist?
Oh man, that that's a. I mean, oh boy. I mean, I get okay. So I think it goes down to, and this is no offense to I mean, like Alex Toth or Howard Chaykin or somebody that does some like great, some great pages that are in here. That it comes down to me to Buscema, Windsor-Smith, and Gil Kane. I'm a huge fan of all three of those artists. I would probably, in the final analysis, the run would probably come down between Windsor-Smith and Buscema.
Mhm.
Windsor-Smith is probably my It's tough to say that, but probably my absolute favorite, just out of like, he did Red Nails. You know, he did. There's
Oh yeah, which is a great story to adapt.
right. But the amount that Buscema did, and the amount of work that is of John Buscema, and the variety of the different inkers that he had on there, and how much
Oh
that
my
could
gosh.
really affect what the art looked
Mhm.
like, in positive ways. I mean, where I think like with Barry Windsor-Smith, you're like, here's, the look you want to get to in Barry Windsor-Smith, and he gets there over the course of time, and that's what you want it to look like. With Buscema, I think there really is fun when it's like, oh, who's inking this one? You know, is it Ernie Chan,
Ernie
Sal
Chan,
Buscema?
Tony Desuniga. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
there's so many great inkers. And it's funny because one of my favorite inkers is one that he didn't particularly like inking this stuff.
who
Like,
is that?
Roy Thomas talks about all these I don't know how the hell Roy Thomas remembers this stuff, man. It's crazy, but I love Buscema's my guy.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I like what Barry and I love Barry Windsor-Smith.
yeah.
Weapon X,
Right.
one of my favorite things he ever did. But oh my gosh, yeah. Maybe I don't know. Maybe his Conan was too pretty. John just drew him rugged and
Yeah,
so so savage, man. It was so good.
yeah,
It had a good mix of that Frazetta style.
yeah. That's really true. Yeah, the Windsor-Smith stuff. Yeah, as good as it is, it really gets into that romanticism,
Yeah,
and
that's the best way to put
there's
it. Mhm.
a delicacy to the line art that is cool to have on something like Conan, because it creates like a tension, I think, between what the character is and the way it's drawn sometimes. But that, yeah,
Mhm.
Buscema stuff is just so hard hitting, man. Like, it's, yeah.
Oh, and he was so fast too. He wouldn't miss a beat.
Oh
It was
yeah,
it, it was rare for him to take a break. So there's so much art to just get from those early issues. And then
yeah,
even when he took a break, he would come back and was like, "Well, I got to go draw, I don't know, whatever Marvel made him draw at the time, Avengers or he's like he would come back going, but I really want
yeah,
it, or Thor." Like he was like, "Well, I guess this is as close to what I really like drawing, which was always
yeah.
Conan." Or
Yeah. Is I feel like Buscema for years, despite the status that he always has had, like, he almost gets short shrift on a lot of that stuff. That it's like, well, who's the Conan artist? Barry Windsor-Smith. Who's the Avengers artist? Neil Adams. But it's like,
oh, right. Yeah.
but but John Buscema and Tom Palmer, twice in that, like, two runs in that comic, are gorgeous.
Mhm.
Like that stuff is so good. There are days where I almost prefer the stuff where it's Buscema Palmer at the end of Kree Skull War to the Neil Adams stuff.
Over
As
the Neil
crazy as that
Adams
is,
stuff. There
the
is a big
storytelling's so
change.
good.
Yeah, there's definitely a big change there.
Yeah,
Um, and oh my gosh, when he went over and he just cut loose when he was doing the Savage Sword stuff. It's
yeah,
great. Um, I'll have to go with yeah, I'm curious what other people have said too. Big John.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
John Buscema and Frank Frazetta. But I think Larry's right. John Buscema, Barry Smith, Gil Kane. You nailed the top three with this collection. Yeah. And there's a
Yeah,
lot of Kane because he followed the book up after Buscema left.
yeah. And I
Yes,
love the Gil Kane.
Alfredo Alcala. That's one of the
Oh,
best inkers. Yeah,
yeah, very
that was
good.
great. Those guys, whenever they started sending out the pages over to what was it, the Philippines, I think, to
Yeah,
get them
yeah,
inked. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, and there's all kinds of funny stories that Roy Thomas tells about that stuff too. How pages would mysteriously go missing. He's like, somebody ended up with this stuff.
Oh wow, yeah, yeah.
Who was that inker that Ernie Chan? I loved him.
Okay.
But I don't think John Buscema really liked his inks.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
way Roy remembered it. Um,
That's funny. Huh.
and with this project going on, you said you all have other things in mind or other projects that aren't just Conan?
Oh, definitely other projects that aren't Conan. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we're going to be kind of all over the place. We're right, like right now I think the first couple of things that we have coming out, we did a crowdfunded a game called Everyone Else Thinks This Game is Awesome through Erasmus Fox, which is an imprint of ours.
Okay.
Long story to get there, but that came out. John Nee and S.J. Roseanne are writing or have written a book called The Murder of Mr. Ma that's going to come out from Soho Press in April of next year. That's packaged by Pug W. And after them, I'm doing a comic called Signa. If you like the Transformers stuff we did, it's me and Andrew Griffith, who did Robots in Disguise.
Yo, I like that guy too.
He's amazing. Yeah, I talked to him every day. So we're finally doing our creator-owned book. So that's gonna come out. Look for that at the beginning of next year.
Through your own publishing, then, like
through Pug. Yeah.
Pug. Okay.
Yeah.
And where can people find information on Pug worldwide? Like, is there a website?
Yeah, definitely.
And then, of course, follow you on social media.
Yeah, well, yeah. But pugworldwide.com. You could check us out there. Sign up for the get info on Signa and updates and anything else. I'm periodically on Twitter or Blue Sky and whatever. I always just get there's only so much of that I can take, to be honest.
I understand. Delatore is John Buscema, but dude, that guy is insane. His art is crazy.
Yeah.
I remember he did a backup story for one of the Marvel books that I think Jim Sub wrote. And I thought to myself, I was like, oh my gosh, if somebody doesn't grab this guy to just be the ongoing artist on Conan, they're really missing out. Yes, there's all this stuff that you can just do a second volume from, man. Second volume of the Conan Colossal edition. So, John, do you have any words of advice or wisdom that you would like to share with people that are trying to make it into comics? I know the artist edition is a little bit different, but you're a writer, so there's lots of people trying to break into comics as writers and artists. Do you have any words of advice? Something you would tell a young John to do a little bit different?
Yeah, I don't know. It's always tricky it's always tricky because the goalposts are always changing, and in the sense that, like, the way I came in, like, that world doesn't exist anymore, right? Like, it's kind of things are kind of different. I always say you just kind of do whatever you can to make something. I would always have tended to recommend people go out and make comics, because if you actually make a comic, it doesn't guarantee you a job in comics, but it does guarantee that you are in comics. Like, that's all it takes. You've made a comic, you've done it, you're in comics. I think a big part of it is figuring out how that fits into the rest of your life, because even really successful comic book creators are doing other stuff, right? Like, even somebody that's like that other thing might be writing a TV show instead of I don't know, working at a bookstore or working at Starbucks or something, but that still is another thing that they're doing. Yeah, I mean, I'd suggest you kind of get out there and make something. I mean, it could be a comic, I don't know, make a movie, make a hit TV show. It makes it easier to get into comics that way. Like, if you have the #1 TV show, it opens doors for you.
Oh my gosh!
No, but seriously, sorry, that was but like, you can get in. It is possible to make your way up without being a best-selling novelist or TV writer or something.
Oh yeah, you can be a musician. Those guys seem
there you go. There you go.
I'm just saying, it's a trend I noticed, right? And I'm not saying they're bad. I don't know. Some of those guys can be great comic book.
Oh, sure.
But definitely, it's like, hey, I lead the. I mean, I love Umbrella Academy, and that was all.
Yes.
My Chemical Romance, right? And who knew?
Yeah. No, he loved Transformers, G.I. Joe as well, and he put me in my. Or he tagged Tom and I on Twitter one time when that was coming out. So for I don't know, 5 years after that, every once in a while I get some weird follow, or not a weird follower, but a follower. I'm like, why is this person following me? It was a teenage girl who'd gotten into it was just going through everybody that he ever tagged, and it's like, well, if he likes, if Gerard Way likes him, I'm going to follow him.
And that's what I was going to say about Gerard Way and other musicians that are trying to make it. Hey, that's also the way I see it. Is they can bring in their own fan base to check out all these comics that are out there. Okay, this was a question I was going to ask you after the show, but David brought it up, so I gotta ask. Maybe Mr. Barber still keeps up with James Roberts. Anything new soon? I sure miss the Transformer. We do. We miss that era of Transformers.
James and I never got along. No, I'm just kidding. James and I are really good friends. That'd be funny if I invented a feud with James. It's been it's been a few weeks since I've talked to James, but like, I mean, I guess probably sat down and talked to him. It's probably been like, time flies, so probably like last year or something. But like, yeah, I mean, James is great. I would love to see more from him. I really, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I love that guy. Would love to see something else he's doing. I'd love to. I mean, I'd work with him on anything, anywhere, anytime.
And his way into comics was really interesting too, because he was doing a lot of the Transformers stuff that wasn't, like Hasbro licensed. Like, Hasbro asked him to write a book or anything. Right. He was writing like all these stories and stuff. And holy crap, just like you during your time on Transformers, you guys were the two big names on the titles. They're great. Yeah, and you worked with a lot of wonderful artists, of course. But those were the two names that I remembered. So as soon as I saw
Margaret Scott as well. I don't want to like not have her. She was a key part of that run.
Well, okay, but I meant like when we got to phase. Sorry.
When it first
when we got to phase 2 at the beginning of phase 2, it was those two books that got so many. And I mean, there's a whole legacy of that. Like describing that era of Transformers to people is so different. Like if people only come from the toys or the animated show, and you go to a convention, and you see like characters like cosplayers only choose characters from the comics to cosplay as. You hardly see anybody dressed as Soundwave. I mean, you will, right? But it's mainly the beloved characters that you all wrote and the adaptation from the comics. And that says a lot about that era of Transformers and how much it impacted those people's lives and how much it meant to them.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, no, I think it really did. And I mean, it was a great time. And I think it's funny. I genuinely do like the current run. I've known Kirkman for a long time. I know he's a Transformers fan. Like I know that for real. But there's like reading the new issue, it's like there's an airplane fight scene in there. There's probably one of the best choreographed air combat fights.
Oh, you're talking about the Starscream fight scene with the
okay. And we're I mean, I don't even think it's a spoiler because it's 2023. So who, of course, Duke ejects from a plane and it's Duke from G.I. Joe. But that's beautifully choreographed. But there is that part of me that's like, well, yeah, but what about the really, really dark politics, or what about gender? What about, don't these characters love each other anymore?
Oh my gosh, dude. Yeah. Like my daughter was obsessed. Like when I told her that IDW lost the license, it really bothered her. It bothered her and then there weren't. Honestly, it kind of bothered her after they relaunched it anyway, after the Unicron War. But hey, this is a completely different show now. I could geek out about all this stuff all day, every day, brother. I'm a big fan. Dude, I'm gonna have you and James. I actually invited James on the show a few. Oh my gosh, time does fly. That was 2 years ago. But at the time, I think he was just like not ready to talk about Transformers.
I told you he's a terrible person.
He wasn't. He wasn't writing it. I never got to meet him at cons either because I know he lives overseas.
Yeah.
So at any BotCon or anything like that, I never did get to see him there.
Yeah,
that's I get to meet a lot of the artists. What's that?
Yeah, one of my favorite things. Yeah, he lives in Guernsey, which is, if I remember this right, it is not part of the United Kingdom, but is a protectorate of the Crown. So it's an extremely odd place that he lives in. No, but that's just sort of general, like, I don't know, trying to fool with it. Yeah, no, I would. Yeah, man, that'd be fun. That'd be fun to come on here and talk. Dude,
you guys want to talk about Transformers? I will have both of you on and talk about Transformers. We can talk about Conan too. I love Conan as well. But when we're talking about that phase 2 of Transformers, that is, and I grew up reading the Transformer comics. I love the Marvel stuff, but that was just, that was other level. That was stuff that got people that normally would not ever care about Transformers to read Transformer comics, and that's saying something. And then there's a whole legacy.
Well, yeah, I could pull us all back together. That yeah, no, I knew that Jason Aaron was a big More Than Meets the Eye fan. You would talk about that sometimes. Former Conan writer Jason Aaron. That's how I was trying to
Yeah, I
crack
like
into
that guy.
Conan. It all works.
Yeah, there we go. Man, I love Aaron. I love Aaron too. Talking to him, that guy's so like he looks like this biker guy
Yeah.
that would just like destroy you, but he's so calm and soft spoken. He's so awesome to talk to. Such a nice guy too.
Oh yeah. No, I used to work
And-
with him on Wolverine, and he would
that's
every
right.
once in a while he'd call up and he'd like every writer's different when they're working with an editor, right? You know, like
Mhm.
sometimes different people want different things or need different things. But he'd call me up and he'd be like, "Hey, does this sound good?" And he'd like just like tell this like Wolverine story or this like part of the Wolverine story, and
Mhm.
I'd just be like, "Yeah, that sounds great, Jason." You know, you just be like really really good stuff. You know, like yeah, no, I think you nailed it there. It's like, oh, okay. Well,
Man, yeah, people like I think he just has this his physique and stuff. He's very intimidating, but when you approach him, he's such a freaking nice guy.
yeah, I've always
Yeah.
wanted to be. Yeah.
And speaking of nice guys, John, you are yourself too.
Oh, you don't know
You
me.
are. You are, man. Big fan of what you did, and I'm a big fan of what you're doing now. So when I had the opportunity, I remember telling Jordan, I was like, "Man, my November, December booked," and I'm like, "Wait, John Barber?" No,
Well,
it's
thank
like
you.
let me move some stuff around. I
Yeah.
will make it work.
Well, thanks
Uh,
again for moving stuff around today too,
oh,
and apologies for everybody that was trying to stream it earlier.
I'm just glad
My
everything
daughter was sick.
is okay. I'm
Yeah,
glad everything's okay, brother.
yeah.
And anytime you want to come back on the show, whether it's
Oh,
more Conan news or seriously, I look back at your IDW stuff. I'll try to hold my tears back. You are more than welcome to come back, man.
love to. Yeah,
Um,
anytime. Shoot me an email. Yeah.
so yeah, I have the link to the book in the description of the video. Go and check it out. Let show Conan some more love if you haven't already, and hopefully we will see. I may reach back out to either Jordan or you about the retailer stuff because I had a I had an email pop up from somebody that sells stuff online about the books
Okay.
uh, to see if they can be shipped or when they. Oh, that's the other big question: is
Oh,
when do you guys usually have? Like, do you have a timeline of when this book will be going out?
yes, and that is exactly the sort of question I should know the answer to offhand.
Mhm.
I believe what it says. Uh, what it says on Zoop is as accurate as we have right now. I was just going to look on the Zoop page. I think there's
Okay.
a timeline built into there. I was just talking to Ian Chalgren, the designer, today, and he's
Mhm.
pulling stuff together and getting it all getting. I mean, we have all the pages. I mean, but he's putting the design together. Chris Ryle, who I didn't mention, is writing some introductory section or pages for each of the sections to kind of give a little bit of context. He's got a really cool book on Marvel calendars coming out, so you can kind of see that he's already a expert on that era of stuff. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, spring 2024 is barring. Having lived through COVID, I
Oh,
always feel like we have to say barring world-shaking disaster because I lived through it taking a year to get the Batman Max hardcovers from Korea to Los Angeles. So,
I oh my gosh, I remember that. I remember when I was like, well, maybe it's coming out next month because every month I do the upcoming collected editions, and I remember that was one where people were asking me, "Hey, is this book actually coming?" And I'm like, "Well, it's solicited, but yeah." And that's also during the time when like ships were just stuck in the middle of the ocean because they didn't have anywhere to dock. It
yeah,
was man,
that
that was
one.
such a
Yeah, it almost fell off the boat. And that caused apparently a greater problem than if it had fallen off the boat, because if it had fallen off, we would have just reprinted it. But the fact that they still existed, but they needed to go to Japan first and then make their way over. What was hilarious about that book is by the time you read it, and it was a Marvel, or excuse me, an IDW DC, co-publication. So it
yeah.
had a list of everybody from IDW and DC. And that read like a war memorial by the time that thing actually came out. Like nobody was left from that list.
No, this is the big art book. That is the artist
Yeah.
edition of Conan.
Yeah,
That's what this.
they're not infringing on our friends at Titan. That series continues. Big fan of what Zub and De La Torre and Doug Braithwaite on the next issue are doing.
Oh yeah. Oh well, I'll have to check out the next issue. I'm waiting for that first trade paperback to drop. Well, at this time, I just want to thank my guest, John Barber, phenomenal storyteller and all-around good guy, and now in charge of this him and his friends are in charge of this Conan Artist Edition. Now, knock on wood, might hopefully be out the spring of.
Oh yeah, it should be. I was
okay.
Just saying. I feel I've lived through.
It's okay to say that. It's okay to say that. Things get delayed all the time, but hopefully it will be.
Yeah.
So that's it, everybody. Thank you, and big thank you to Jordan for helping put this interview together.
Yeah, thank you.
Stay healthy and safe out there, everybody. Much love. Keep on reading.
Thanks, everybody.